Hey there, YouTube. Thanks for stopping by. Moo Dogs, Frugal RCs, and more. Today we're going to be having a look at the SYMA X8C Venture. Stay tuned. First off, I'd like to thank all the new subscribers that have been coming on board lately. I've got a couple new ones, nothing earth-shattering, but I'd still like to give you guys a shout-out and thanks for coming by to check out my channel. If you know anything about my channel at all, or just by the title of my channel, Frugal. I do everything on the frugal side, everything on the least expensive side, bang for the buck kind of products that I'll be doing reviews on, giving commentary on, unboxings. Kind of in unboxing mode right now. We're doing quadcopters because kind of 'tis the season. So this goes without saying that the SYMA X8C Venture has been around for a while. Now this is a 6-axis quadcopter. It comes with a remote control, and it's basically made for aerial photography. Now, if anybody has seen other quadcopters on the market now, this mimics a very, very expensive and very popular quadcopter by the company DJI called the Phantom. Basically the same size, kind of same form as the Phantom, just a lot less money. I mean, I'm talking a lot less money. It's not going to have the bells and whistles like the GPS location, any of that type of stuff, the return to home. The multi-axis gimbal is not going to be present on this one, but we're looking at a quadcopter you can pick up now for right around $60 on Amazon. And I'll go ahead and put a link in the description below so you guys can check it out should you want to. But without further ado, let's have a look at this guy. All right, so SYMA has been around for a while now. They've made a pretty good name for themselves in the infrared technology helicopters, which I had a couple of those in the past. Now I'm starting to get into quadcopters a little bit more, and SYMA name is pretty much synonymous with good quality toy grade quadcopters. They specialize in toy grade, and there's a good reason for that. They do it well. They did try to come out with a more professional, I guess you could say professional grade quadcopter that had GPS, the X8. I believe it was the Pro version, and there was a lot of issues with the GPS not working correctly and the return to home malfunctioning and causing some issues. But this is the base model for the X8 series of quadcopters. The X8C has been around for, oh gosh, probably 3, maybe going on 4 years now. The price has come down considerably, and I wanted to add one to my fleet, so I thought now is the time. This one is going to come with, I did get the black version of this particular unit. It comes with the multifunction remote control, has a high and low speed mode of key, does some other kind of cool stuff, does flips, 360 flips. This is essentially going to be a aerial photography bird. It's not going to be made for doing any kind of real sport flying, although some guys will take it out there and do sport flying. This one does not have altitude hold. I do own a X8C, which basically is the same quadcopter, but with altitude hold. This one has a 720 2 megapixel camera that's actuated from, they can start and stop from the actual remote control by a key on the remote. And let's go ahead and get this thing open. I'll show you what comes inside the box, and I'll get it set up for you and show you the finished product. Okay, so let's get this guy out of here, and we'll take a look and see what comes inside the package. This SYMA is pretty much the king of packing the most possible amount of product in the smallest amount of packaging, which is kind of cool. The inside of the box flap here, the end box flap, is going to show you a diagram of the blade placement on here. There are going to be A and B placement blades on this quadcopter, on all quadcopters. That's just going to signify the rotation of the motor and the orientation of the blade corresponding to the rotation of the motor. So that's kind of a little helpful information on the end flap there. And let's get this guy out of the box here, and the box off to the side. And so inside the box we have the quad itself. And there's some weight to this one, you guys. These guys are made quite well, quite sturdy, made to take a bit of a licking. These are quadcopters that are over the weight limit, so they will have to be registered with the FAA. And that's really simple to do. It's $5 to do it. I recommend anybody flying something this large to go ahead and take care of that, something this large and that heavy, to go ahead and make sure that you do have it registered with the FAA. It's a big fine if you don't. So the quadcopter comes in the box. You'll notice that the props are not installed. We'll go over that in a second. The inside the box, underneath the quadcopter, you're going to get 4 prop guards, which I won't use because I've been flying for a little while, but it's good to have for new flyers. I recommend using these. And inside this little box here, this is going to be your charger. This is the actual cord with the wall plug, and this will plug into a module, which I believe is on the other side of this styrofoam container. And I'll go ahead and set that off to the side for the time being. And let's go ahead and get this thing flipped over. And here's what I was talking about before. SYMA really makes good use of this of their packaging. They really do a nice job at it. The other part of the charger is going to be right here, and this is a balance charger. The battery that comes with this, we'll go over that in a second, but we'll plug into here on the balance port, and I'll show you that in just a second. The camera for the quadcopter is going to be here. And this is a 2 megapixel 720p camera. Now, it has a little bit of vibration dampening built into it, and they really kind of put just minimal vibration damping. And it also comes complete with a 4 gigabyte micro SD card. So all of your photos will save, and your video will save on this SD card. That's right in the back of the camera. This is not the FPV version, so you will not have any first-person view or be able to hook up a phone or anything like that to monitor where you're flying. This is basically just a camera, capture photo, capture video on here, and then download it to computer or wherever. So we'll set that aside. We're also getting some blades, and it looks like they gave us 2 sets here. So we're going to have, like I mentioned before briefly, you're going to have your A and B designated blades. I don't know if you guys will be able to pick this up, but here's an A blade here. You can see that basically right by my thumb. And then there are some B blades as well. And these are all A's, it looks like. I see what they did here. Yeah, these are all going to be A's. And the B's are going to be on this side. So we have A blades and B blades, but 2 full sets, 1 to put on, and then a spare set in case you crack one. Sorry about the camera there, guys. You have your landing gear here, 2 of them anyway, and these will attach to the bottom side of the quadcopter. And I'll show you how that all fits together a little bit later on in the video. And this side over here, you're going to have all of your B blades, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm pretty sure that's how they did it. And that's correct. Yeah, these are all B designated blades. And again, I mentioned before that your A's are going to be for one type of rotation, one direction, and the B's are going to be in the other direction. And it's very important that you put them on the corresponding motors. Otherwise, your quadcopter is not going to fly. It won't even take off from a stop, so it's not even going to take off. And then on the other side here, like I mentioned before, or I kind of thought they were going to be, is the landing gear. And the landing gear is nothing more than just molded plastic, but these are sturdy enough. Now, this quadcopter is capable of carrying a GoPro, and with this shorter landing gear like this, you're not going to be able to have the clearance for a GoPro in most cases, depending on the setup that you use. There's stuff on the aftermarket that you can purchase as far as mounting for GoPro mounts. Some will fit, some won't. There is also aftermarket landing gear that will actually extend a little bit higher so you're able to use a GoPro. And the remote is right here, and this is not an altitude hold remote. It's fully manual, so you're in full control of your altitude, your throttle here on the left, and your yaw, and then on the right hand side is going to be your pitch and your roll. And we'll go over some of the functionality of this in just a little bit. And then the last item here is going to be our goodie bag, and this is just going to be nothing more than screws to attach the landing gear, screws to attach the other, basically it's just for landing gear, I'm pretty sure. And they do give you some extra pieces in here in case you have one hit the floor and roll into Egypt, which has happened more than one time. And we'll set that aside. And then you have a screwdriver to attach the landing gear, and you have the actual pieces that will, these are spares, but these are little plastic pieces here. These are actual locks that will lock your blades on, and I'll show you how to install the blades in just a few minutes here. But that's pretty much all you're getting with the quad. Pretty nice package, pretty nice kit. Everything is there that you would need to get the quadcopter set up properly. And now we're going to go ahead and start setting this up. I wanted to mention before we do that the battery is in the back here. And we'll go ahead and pull that out. And this is going to be a banana type connector. I have all my SYMA batteries are switched over to Dean's connectors, and there's just a reason for that, because I can use these batteries with more than one piece of RC equipment, or more than one quadcopter, I should say. This is the balance plug on here, and this would get attached to the back of the charger here, and then this would plug in with the cord and then plug into the wall. Charging on this is probably going to be right around 2 or 3 hours, probably closer to 3 hours on this from a discharged state to fully charged. I use a hobby charger, so it takes a little less time, but it's kind of nice that they included this with the package. And let's go ahead and start getting this thing put together. All right, the first thing I'm going to attach on here install on here is going to be the landing gear, and that just gives me a little bit of elevation for the quadcopter, and a little bit of stability to attach the blades. And putting the landing gear on is nothing more than turning the quad over on its back. And then you'll see that you have 4 legs, and they're all oriented the same way, so it doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong way to put these on. Well, actually there is. There's only one way that will fit properly, though. So what you want to do is you want to, this center hole right here, you want to line up with a hole on the inside of the prop arm. So there's a hole right here, and you'll see 4 places for those holes. So the first thing you want to do is go ahead and press that in place, and make sure that your screw holes are lined up. And the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and attach screws on there and get those all put in place. The kit's going to come with several different screw sizes, actually 2 that I can see here. One is going to have this larger head on it, if you can see that in this camera here. One's going to have a larger head on it, almost with like a retainer, like a washer on the end, and the other is going to be a smaller type, like this, without that washer. Oops, I'm sorry, I grabbed the wrong one here. The other one's going to be a smaller type without that pronounced flared end on it. These ones with the washers are the ones you're going to want to use for your landing gear, and it's nothing more than just putting them through the hole in the inside of the landing gear to the quadcopter, and then going ahead and tightening those down. And there's 2 places on each to do that, and I'll go ahead and get these all installed for you and show you what it looks like when I'm done. All right, so I've got all the landing gear on right now, and you guys can see that there are 2 spaces under each leg right here that the larger size screws with the kind of washered ends go into, and that's pretty much that. Now, for the next part of the assembly, now there's no right or wrong way to do this. There's no necessary order you have to go in. And there are instructions, I forgot to mention before when I did the unboxing, that there are instructions that come with the quadcopter that will actually show you how to do all these things. And they're pretty well laid out, and they're pretty well the pictures are pretty, you know, pretty explanatory. So the verbiage in here is Chinese to English translation, but SYMA has been selling their products in the United States for some time, and they're a reputable name with a trademark name, and their manuals are generally pretty good and pretty easy to understand. So hang on to this, if nothing else, for the assembly, and if you guys are new to flying, that you hang on to this for some of the, kind of goes over some of the controls on the transmitter, and it also goes over, you know, some safety precautions and things of that nature, as well as the layout of the transmitter. So hang on to that. It's good to have. Next step is going to be attaching the props. And as mentioned before, SYMA went ahead, and a lot of companies are doing this now, went ahead and labeled each one of these arms, these motor pods, with either a B or an, if you can see that or not, an A. Again, I mentioned before that that's going to correspond with the prop that you put on there. The B motors are going to spin in this direction here, and you can see the actual little kind of arrow on here that shows the rotation of these motors. These are going to spin, I guess you would say, counterclockwise, and the A's are going to spin clockwise. So you want to make sure that you're putting the right props on the right arms. Otherwise, your quadcopter is not going to take off when you want it to go. So let's go ahead and start one of these right away. Okay, and you'll notice on these ends here, these little white pieces of plastic here, these are actually prop retainers, and there's the two parts of this component, actually two components to this installation, three if you count the prop, but to basically to hold the prop down, you would have these little plastic retainers, and then inside that plastic retainer, if you guys can see it or not, but there's a small pin. If you can see that little pin going through the actual shaft of the motor here, there is a pin that goes through that. In order to get this off, you twist either left or right, and that you'll hear a definite click, and you'll be able to go ahead and slide that down. Now you can see that the pin is exposed, and what you want to do at this point is kind of press that pin through, and be careful, you don't want to lose these. There are spares in the package, but you want to hang on to these small little pins. And here's what I'm talking about, pins. And these will fit through the holes on the motor shaft. So let's see if I can get this to focus here. You can kind of make it out right there. There's a hole on that motor shaft. That pin will go through to lock the whole shoot and match into place. So in order to put that prop on, now we're dealing with a B prop arm. So we're going to look for a B prop. Let's go ahead and take this off. Now that that pin's out of the way, that'll allow you to take this plastic piece off. And we'll go ahead and set those aside for just the time being. And we'll find that B prop. And that's going to be marked on the inside of the prop, closest to the hub. And you can see the B. Well, you can almost make out the B there. It says B1. That's the prop we want to use for this application. There's a metal side and a plastic side. Plastic side is going to go down. And it's going to fit over the shaft, and you'll feel it when it clicks into place, and it'll feel kind of ratchety because it's running on a gear. The next step is to put your little plastic retainer guy on, and you're going to want to put that on cone side down. There's a different side here. You can see how it is kind of conical shaped. If I can hold this better here. You can see how it's a little bit kind of conical shaped. You want to put the small side down. Fit that in place, spin it around in order so you can see the hole in the actual shaft of the prop here. And let's see if I can find that here. Well, I'm going to have to move it around a little bit to find it. And let's see here. Kind of weird doing this behind the camera here, guys. Bear with me for just a second while I find this actual hole here. Oh, it's farther down than I thought. Okay. Yep, there it is. Okay, now I see it. Sorry about that, guys. It was kind of difficult to see from behind the camera, but now I've got it in my vision here. So let's go ahead and press that all the way down there. Now the prop is actually seated on the shaft, and we can go ahead and start putting this together. Again, conical side's going to go down, and you want to leave that opening. You can see now the opening is corresponding with the hole. There's a slot in this plastic piece. You have to line that up with where the hole is, and then you would take your little pin. This is kind of fidgety, guys, so if you guys have like a small needle nose pliers or something to help you along with this, it's actually a good idea to have that. But I'm going to go ahead and attempt this on camera, real time, without any tools. So let's go ahead and get that in place. And once you get that in there, you want to line it up. So you can see that you have equal amount on both sides of the shaft. Once you have that, take that plastic piece and twist it towards you until you hear the click. Now I'll do that again. I'll loosen it. There's a click open. Now we're going to go ahead and lock it. Here's that click. Now it's locked into place. The final step is just to put the dressing, to put the cap on. And all you do with that is just basically set it in place. Give it a couple twists down. Press it on. And there you have it. I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of these props on, and we'll be back as soon as I'm done. All right, that's the props. Now you guys can kind of see what this is all coming together to look like. Again, pay very close attention when you put these on, that you're putting the A's with the A prop aren't with the A motors. You're putting the A props with the A motors and the B props with the B motors. That's going to be crucial, and making sure that your flight is going to lift off the ground. The next step I'm going to show you guys is something really quick, and I'm not going to install all 4 of them, but I'm going to go ahead and show you how the prop guards go in place, and it's really simple to do. You'll notice on each one of these motor pods, you're going to see a what I call a blank. So on here you can see a little raised piece of plastic right here, and it looks kind of like a cutout. It actually is. So this will actually come out. You pull it by that little raised piece, and it will expose a hole there. And what you would do is, in place of that little blank that I took out, you would see that the prop arm has 2 holes in it and kind of a U shape in the center. Nothing more than just setting this in place here, pressing it in. And on the bottom side of the quadcopter, you're going to see 2 holes right here. And there's one right down below that right there. And that would take those screws, the leftover screws that you had, the smaller ones, without the kind of washer end on it, and you would just screw those in place on all 4 ends, and you would have your prop guards in place. And these are a pretty sturdy affair. They're actually made really, really nice. I would not recommend flying this indoors. It's pretty big. I've seen some guys take these things and fly them inside. I'm a relatively experienced pilot, and I will not even fly this inside. What's nice about the quadcopter is not only the price, we know what you're getting with it, but the fact that it does have everything included in the box on what's known as a ready-to-fly quadcopter. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this back into place, and we'll go ahead and get that camera put on, and we'll get it powered up. So I'll be right back. All right, next step is going to be attaching the camera to the underbelly of the quadcopter. That's just simply flipping the quadcopter over on its back. And you can see here a backside. The backside is most easily distinguished by the battery door, which is right here. So that's going to be your backside of the quadcopter. Your front side is going to be opposite of that. And in order to put this, in order to put the camera on, there is a little tracking down here molded into the plastic with a little button to release. What you want to do is go ahead and slide the camera facing forward. Now remember how we distinguished the back being the part that's got the battery hatch and the front being opposite of that. What you want to do is you want to slide this in place on the tracking. You'll notice on the bottom here, there is some little tracks. There's some little raised plastic there that would slide into the tracking, and you'll set that in place between the tracks there, slide it back, and you'll hear an audible click, and you are connected. Next thing you want to do is right next to the power button, there's going to be a slot that says plug, P-L-U-G, and you're going to want to go ahead and connect your camera to that. And that's all you have to do to connect your camera. It is somewhat positional. You can move it a little bit up or down. I've seen guys modify these by taking the camera off and breaking off or grinding off a piece of plastic that'll allow the camera to move more freely. But I think for all intents and purposes, you really don't have to move it a whole lot unless you're shooting like you want to shoot something directly underneath. You want to take pictures of something directly underneath the quadcopter while it's in flight. But I think for all intents and purposes, that works out fine. Next thing we're going to look at is battery placement on this guy here. And what I usually do in this case, or for this particular case, is I'll set it up on its end as such. And we'll go ahead and open up the battery compartment. And inside the battery compartment, you'll see that there is a plug. It's a silicone base cable here, or silicone sorry about the camera there, guys. It's a silicone coated cable, and I may edit that in. I may edit that out. I may leave it in. I might just leave that in, but I'm sorry about the camera. The battery that comes with it is going to be a 2S battery, which means it has two separate cells sandwiched into one. This is a 2S LiPo 7.4 volt 2000 milliamp hour battery. These are they're plenteous on eBay, Amazon, wherever. They're relatively inexpensive. I've got probably, I don't know, 8 or 9, maybe 10 of these now. And I did modify all mine to for a different connector. That's on a whole different video. But basically what you would do to connect this is, first, you'll see that one side of this barrel plug is bigger and one is smaller. One is a female side, one is a male side. And you just want to make sure that you're going into the right ends here. So male to female, female to male. Oops, and it's already turned on. Generally, I would have that off. And then the battery just gets tucked in the back. And the wires get tucked up on top, like so. And they're pretty sturdy wires, so you don't have to really worry about hurting anything unless you're really reefing on the thing. And go ahead and shut the battery bay in the back. And the power switch is underneath. It's already on. And you can see that we have red or orange LEDs in the front and the green in the back, which is kind of backward in my way of thinking. It should be green in the front and red in the back, or orange. And also on the top, you'll notice that there are LEDs flashing. There's lenses on the top that will allow the LEDs to actually shine through. So that's basically it for the quadcopter itself. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off, and we'll take a look at the transmitter next. All right, here's the transmitter that comes with the SYMA X8C. As I mentioned before, this is a fully manual quadcopter, again, meaning that you're going to be in complete control of the flight of this bird. Your throttle is not going to spring back to center. It's not going to hover on its own, so you have to make it hover on your own, off your own power. That's really, guys, the best way to learn how to fly these things is to fly with a completely, what I call, manual quadcopter. It's pretty much all you, no fluff, nothing like that. So pretty straightforward transmitter. It is a large size transmitter. You'll notice it's got a pretty good size. I got medium sized hands, but this is a pretty good size transmitter. The right hand side here is going to be your throttle up and down, your left and right yaw, which is going to be the quadcopter's ability to turn in midair this way or that way. The right side joystick is going to be your pitch and your roll. Your pitch is going to be when the quadcopter is in flight, you're pitching down or pitching back. If you want to go forward, you're gonna hit your joystick on this side forward, and it'll pitch forward and start moving in a forward direction. And then opposite would be opposite. And then your roll is going to be either side to side here, and that's just going to send the quadcopter banking either left or right, depending on which way you go with it. On the left-hand side on the top here is going to be your speed controls. This quadcopter has two different speeds, a beginner and kind of a more intermediate or advanced speed. And that's going to happen with a quick press of this button on top. And that holding this button down is going to give you a headless mode, which is going to basically let this quadcopter operate either forward, backward, left or right, regardless of the way that the head of the quadcopter is pointing. So you won't have to worry about orientation. I don't recommend using that. I recommend getting used to flying the quadcopter without that. But it's kind of a nice sort of, if you want to call it a fail-safe, call it a fail-safe to get that quadcopter back to you in case of an emergency. The bottom here is going to be this switch right here is going to be up for your photo and down for video. One simple click. Power switch is going to be in the center here. These are all going to be trims, basically setting the quadcopter once you have it up and hover. If you find it's drifting either left or right with no wind, you can adjust that by either one of these. You have also on this side here, this is actually going to be your sidewards or your yaw. So if you start the quadcopter hovering and it's turning on its own, you can kind of adjust it to center it by either going left or right with this right here. Down on the bottom here, you're going to have an LCD display, which is just going to give you basic graphs to show you your trims, where your trims are sitting inside of a parameter. It's going to show you either mode A, or I should say speed A or speed B, the mode that you're in, which is pretty much always going to be mode 2, which is going to be the throttle always on the left. The quadcopter is going to take AA batteries, and you can see on the back here it's going to take 4 AA batteries, and those are not supplied when you buy the quad, so you're going to have to go ahead and get those yourself. And that just slides into place and clicks in. It's pretty sturdy. Generally, they had, on some of these, they had this actually cut out here, and they would put a screw through there to keep the back on. But these are pretty rigid. They stay in place pretty well. Pretty easy to use. Take some time with these things before you start deciding you're going to shoot the moon. It takes a while to learn how to operate these things properly and safely. There are all kinds of tutorial videos out there nowadays to show you guys how to operate them properly and safely, and not get yourself into a bind. Again, take it slow, go low and slow to start, and make sure that you're not flying over crowds of people, over animals, that type of thing. You want to make sure that you have a wide open area with as much space as you possibly can have, and that you are following the rules with having the quad actually registered with the FAA. So that's pretty much it for now, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you all in the next one. This is Moodog saying God bless the Republic.